Mass Effect 3's ending. This 20-minute time period is what ultimately caused a shitstorm backlash that has gotten so big, it has actually prompted BioWare to work on a free DLC due this summer to rectify and answer the situation. What many players don't understand, however, is that they might not even need a new ending at all. Just some extra clarification about what could be going on over our heads at the final moments of the game. The indoctrination theory is just that. Something that has been proposed by many players and critics alike, prompted by many long videos just like this one, and has also been the cause for a lot of disagreement among players. It ultimately aims to explain what went on during this confusing end to a beloved franchise. My goal in this video is to compile all the information found in every other video, forum topic, blog, post, etc. out there at this time. I will also be adding in some things I've noticed myself that others have missed. These new pieces of information that I have personally developed are some of the most compelling arguments to surface in support of the indoctrination theory to date. I will be analyzing every single piece of evidence and breaking each situation down, testing whether each is valid, plausible, or unlikely to be true. This way you can rest assured knowing I've covered all the bases, from clues that took place from the beginning of the series to the ending that has caused so much controversy, and right up to the mouths of the developers themselves. So take a leak, wash your hands, get some food and water, and let's do this! Now, here's a brief rundown of the theory itself. The theory believes that as soon as Shepard gets hit with Harbinger's red laser beam super attack cannon ray of doom on the final charge to the warp beam, he instantly enters into a dreamlike state in his own mind, which is where the remainder of the game takes place, including the final cutscenes. Now, I want to make something clear here really quickly. The theory is not saying that Shepard is indoctrinated, because he isn't. The theory is saying that throughout all of Mass Effect 3, the Reapers have been trying to indoctrinate Shepard, and at this last few moments of the game, it's a last-ditch attempt to fully indoctrinate him, and the decision that you make at the end of the game determines whether Shepard succumbs to the indoctrination or whether he beats it once and for all. Now, before I present the theory, I want to do one more thing. I want to show you the codex entry on indoctrination, just so you all know exactly what indoctrination is, what it means. Other videos have done this as well, but I feel it is important to know the basis of the theory.
Reaper indoctrination is an insidious means of corrupting organic minds, reprogramming the brain through physical and psychological conditioning using electromagnetic fields, infrasonic and ultrasonic noise, and other subliminal methods. The Reaper's resulting control over the limbic system leaves the victim highly susceptible to its suggestions. Organics undergoing indoctrination may complain of headaches and buzzing or ringing in their ears.
Do you hear that hum? Is that just me?
As time passes, they have feelings of being watched and hallucinations of ghostly presences. Ultimately, the Reaper gains the ability to use the victim's body to amplify its signals, manifesting as alien voices in the mind. Indoctrination can create perfect deep cover agents. A Reaper's suggestions can manipulate victims into betraying friends, trusting enemies, or viewing the Reaper itself with superstitious awe. Should a Reaper subvert a well-placed political or military leader, the resulting chaos can bring down nations. Long-term physical effects of the manipulation are unsustainable. Higher mental functioning decays, ultimately leaving the victim a gibbering animal. Rapid indoctrination is possible, but causes this decay in days or weeks. Slow, patient indoctrination allows the thrall to last for months or years.
So let's start off with right after Shepard gets hit by Harbinger. Remember, according to the indoctrination theory, everything after this point is just an illusion of Shepard's mind. The first thing we see is Harbinger leaving. If this were real, why would he do this? Harbinger would obviously see Shepard still alive and walking towards the beam, and Anderson too, as we later find out. Why just dip out and leave the only thing that can lead to their destruction completely open and vulnerable? The answer is because they want Shepard to go in. Again, this isn't actually happening, but they need to make Shepard believe that it really is happening, otherwise his mind wouldn't believe it's real at all and their ploy would be foiled. Therefore, they are trying to make it as realistic as possible for him. Harbinger leaves, and thus Shepard thinks that Harbinger thinks everyone is dead, and therefore Shepard believes he has an opportunity to make it to the beam. Having Shepard fight against Husks and the infamous Shield Marauder is only there to make it more realistic for both him and you, the player. Many have questioned, if this is just a dream, why would Shepard die when he gets killed by the enemies? Obviously, this is because it would be a dead giveaway to the theory if Shepard survives when he shouldn't. Therefore, the Harbinger leaving aspect is valid in my opinion. Now, let's quickly analyze the surroundings before we enter the special beam cannon. The most heavily noted portion of this area among the supporters of the theory is that the surroundings have changed. Throughout the game, Shepard has had regular nightmares. In this particular instance, we can see elements of Shepard's dreams present all around him. There are black bushes and trees present in front of and behind Shepard that many people believe were not there before. But wait, I hate to admit it, but upon reviewing the charge down the hill footage, there actually are trees on both sides of Shepard in very close proximity to where he gets hit, as well as shrubs that can be seen as Shepard is running down the hill, all of which very closely resemble the ones we see after he gets hit. I mean, yes, they are the same type of trees and shrubs in the dreams that Shepard has been having, but it makes absolutely no sense for the dream trees to be there prior to Shepard getting hit with the last-ditch attempt at indoctrinating him, leaving me to believe that it was a simple coincidence for the trees to be there. Trees are just trees, after all. Therefore, this particular portion of the theory loses credibility in my opinion. Now, just because the trees don't necessarily have anything to do with the indoctrination theory doesn't mean this part of the scene doesn't relate to the dream sequences. Listen to the background music when Shepard gets up at first, then listen to the sounds of the dream sequences. The background sounds are almost exactly the same. They both have a wispy, dreamlike quality to them, the only real difference being the pitch. There is no reason for anything around Shepard to be making those noises when he gets up after being hit by Harbinger, and there certainly weren't any noises like that before he got hit with the beam. But here's the best part of it, the Rachni Queen was right all along.
No, I do not know what happened in the war. We only heard discordance. Songs the color of oily shadows.
Songs the color of oily shadows? If there was a way to describe the sounds that we hear in those dream sequences and the sounds after Shepard gets hit, I think oily shadows would be perfect. Not to mention, there actually are oily shadows in Shepard's dream, clearly showing that his dreams are more than just dreams, but actual indoctrination attempts. But more on that later.
We were only an egg, hearing Mother cry in our dreams. A tone from space hushed one voice after another. It forced the singers to resonate with its own sour yellow note.
Goddess!
Maddening sour note has ceased.
The Reapers did this to you?
The sour note of the machines is everywhere. We remember. We kept our promise. Retreated back through the relay. We started a new home. Beautiful children. Harmony. But the machines came. They heard our song. Their shriek of sour notes drowned us out.
The sour note of machines is everywhere. Again, another perfect description of the sounds of the Reapers. It sounds just like sour, off-pitched notes. Here's the highlight of this all. You can even hear the Reaper growling in the dream sequence background noise. This is a sound that is never heard by Shepard or anyone directly in any of the games. It is, however, played in the background at many different important scenes throughout Mass Effect 3, but I'll get back to the growling later as well. My purpose for bringing it up now is to show that these dream sequences are clearly Reaper indoctrination attempts, and it sounds just like a dream sequence when Shepard gets up at the end of the game. The Rachni Queen gave a perfect account of what it sounds like to have the indoctrination effects forced upon you. Therefore, I find this piece of correlating evidence to be very convincing. One more thing about the dreams though, the transitioning between when Shepard is hit in his nightmare to when he wakes up shows a bright white light on the entire screen. We see literally the exact same effect as soon as Shepard gets hit with Harbinger's laser. Then again when we go up the beam to the Citadel. Then we see it yet again when Shepard falls onto the platform in the Citadel that ultimately takes him up to meet the Catalyst. And we also saw this transition earlier when we went into the Geth Consensus in Legion's network. This can't possibly just be a coincidence, can it? If they just wanted to transition, why didn't they just make the entire screen fade or turn white? This is a very specific kind of transition in that it has a little orb or ring around it, much like people describe when they see a light after they die and are resurrected. I'm not saying Shepard died and resurrected, but the design on the transition is similar and it could indicate something. To me, almost all of these can be cast off as lazy on the developer's part, just reusing the same transition over and over again. It would make sense, but there is one of them that stands out as purely not making sense, and that is when Shepard gets hit by Harbinger's laser. It makes absolutely no sense to see a bright white light after being annihilated by a giant red laser. Shouldn't we be seeing red? I understand the intensity of the laser is so bright that it is actually white at the center at times, but it should be a quick flash of white light, mixed with red light on top of it, matching the length that Shepard was being hit for, not a lingering light such as we saw. So the fact that it actually is a lingering light instead of a quick flash like it should be shows that there's more to this scene than we think. It must be something going on in Shepard's mind. But either way you want to take this, I'm going to leave this one as plausible. We're not done analyzing the surroundings just yet. Turn around. Do you notice anything? The horizon is completely blurred out. We should be able to see up the hill perfectly fine like we do the ground in front of it, but all of a sudden it just gets blurred. Do you notice anything else? The entire background is also pulsating white. But why? Where is it coming from? It's clearly not coming from the beam because the beam isn't pulsating at all. It's just emanating a constant stream of light. And that pulsation doesn't occur over any of the vehicles or anything other than the blurred out horizon. My question is, why put this in at all? It seems like a lot of extra work to put in an extra ambience effect that only affects a portion of the background specifically, rather than all of it. I don't know what to make of this or how to connect it to the rest of the theory, other than the possibility that it might be referencing the white transition light we spoke of a moment ago. So I'll go with that. Plausible circumstantial evidence. Furthermore, what's up with the positioning? Shepard was a lot further back when he got hit with the laser. Now when he wakes up, he's a good few yards ahead of his last position. Take a real good look at the two comparisons and you'll see that I'm right. You could argue that it's just a lazy gap in the writing to put him closer so he didn't have to walk as far, or maybe that Shepard actually gets knocked forward. But why would BioWare once again screw up the simple positioning at a time like this? Further, the last answer wouldn't hold any water because when Shepard gets hit, he gets knocked on his ass, not his stomach. For him to have moved yards forward, he would have been getting up on his stomach and he should have been getting hit from behind, but he clearly gets up from his back. Not only that, but the angle of the hill that Shepard is on, in conjunction with the fact that the beam is coming towards him, shows that he gets knocked on his back. Physics wouldn't allow him to fly 3 or 4 yards forward yet still land on his back. Something is awry here, but because we've talked about BioWare being lazy, I'm going to stab this with another plausible. Wait, what's going on with Shepard's armor? Have you noticed it yet? It's a completely different piece of armor than the one I made my Shepard wear the entire game. My Shepard even wore his customized armor in every single cutscene. He even wore it in the dream sequences. I had very distinctive white and blue armor with custom shoulder plates. Why would the armor automatically change to this setup now after Shepard is hit by Harbinger? This is the first time we've ever seen a forced situation where Shepard wears a different piece of armor in the entire game, so this couldn't have been done for developmental reasons. If it were, then we wouldn't have ever seen Shepard in custom armor during the cutscenes to begin with. I questioned a friend of mine after I noticed this, and he suggested that the armor had just been badly burnt by Harbinger's laser. However, upon further investigation, Shepard's armor isn't burnt, it's just very dark blue, and you can see it if you turn around after you get up and let the beam illuminate it. And the soldiers that are laying around Shepard after he gets up, their armor is perfectly fine. They were hit even before Shepard was. They still have their gray armor on, and gray armor would very easily look charred, but theirs doesn't. Furthermore, the same thing happens if you were wearing a custom suit like the collector's armor, for example. It just completely changes, so it isn't merely burnt. Even Captain Anderson, or Admiral Anderson's armor, is basically 100% fine. And remember, he claimed that he came in after Shepard, but I explain later why that makes no sense whatsoever. So just for now, we're assuming that he came in before Shepard. And honestly, for either of those cases to be true, Anderson still should have been nailed by Harbinger's laser, otherwise he couldn't have gotten in. Further proving this theory is the fact that his face is all busted up just like Shepard's was. It was fine before we ran down the hill, just like Shepard's was fine before we ran down the hill. So either he also got hit with Harbinger's laser, or the three Husketeers tackled him down and took turns pummeling his face, taking great care to avoid his clothes. All jokes aside though, it's a very strange occurrence. The argument that it's burnt, and the argument that it was for the sake of saving the developers some work, both don't hold any merit, as it's already been proven that Shepard takes his custom armor everywhere. So why the sudden change in the ideology now? I'll go right on ahead and tag this one with a plausible, just due to the lack of an explanation and the high probability that you people watching this probably don't believe that it isn't just a case of lazy developers, even though we both know this should be more than plausible. There's just one more thing before we go up to the beam, the dead bodies. No, not the ones you see blatantly in front of you, I mean the piles of bald dead bodies that all look exactly the same, laying behind around the Mako tanks. I read about this on a blog written by Parably, and at first I didn't believe it because the screenshot in his blog looked like they were actually characters in Mass Effect 1. But guess what? They're seriously there. I checked myself, look at the footage, it's there. The piles weren't there 2 seconds ago when we bum rushed the beam, but guess what else? I'm pretty sure that they are characters from Mass Effect 1. There are two very distinct character models laying there as shown by the two slightly different faces and the two very different pieces of armor. But when is the last time we ever saw a piece of Phoenix armor? That's the pink and white one. Oh right, Mass Effect 1 when Ashley was wearing it. What about the other guy? Oh, that's just Kaidan derping around in some dead bodies. But seriously, those are the exact same pieces of armor that both Kaidan and Ashley wore during the Vermeer cinematics when you had to choose which one to save. It's haunted Shepard ever since, and now it's doing it again. It makes no sense whatsoever for those bodies to be here. It just doesn't, unless this is a dream. I don't care how many people Harbinger just killed when we rushed to that laser, the bodies weren't there before, and even if it happened literally just now, why are they all in piles on the side? They should be scattered all around the battlefield, and they should be variants, not the same two models over and over again. But we see the same style of dead body pile organizing that we saw on the collector base, and then we see it again after we go up the beam. We can even see another piece of Phoenix armor after we go up the beam. Yet here, the bodies are only 2D models, very poorly animated, and they look just like Kaidan and Ashley. Furthermore, every soldier who rushed the laser beam was wearing medium gray armor. Not pink or white or dark blue. And what the actual fuck? Why have they all been scalpeled? A bunch of husks didn't just quickly run up and shave everyone's head and then organize them into fleshy piles on the sidelines in a matter of seconds. It just didn't happen. So why are they there, and why are they bald? Because it's the developers hinting to us that Shepard is hallucinating. Those bodies of repeated Ashleys and Kaidans are reminders of Shepard's past. It's a representation of his guilt. I don't care how lazy the developers are that we've been talking about. Those bodies were placed there in piles deliberately, otherwise they wouldn't have wasted their time. Those bodies only have two character models deliberately. Those bodies don't have hair deliberately. Those bodies look just like Kaidan and Ashley deliberately. There's seriously no way to contradict this one, try as you might. If this was real, like as in not Shepard's mind, those bodies simply would not be there, plain and simple, and if they were, they wouldn't be the same character model repeated over and over again, and they would be scattered. There's just no way to doubt this one. So let's continue on now and go up the pretty beam cannon. The very first thing we find out is that Captain Anderson is also aboard the Citadel. But how? This topic has been debated by many previous indoctrination theorists, and it's still very compelling, and it still holds a lot of merit because no one has been able to come up with an answer for it. Anderson is way ahead of Shepard on his path to the control panel, and yet Anderson himself claims that he followed Shepard inside.
Followed you up, but we didn't come out the same place, no. At least I don't think we did. What's your surrounding look like?
There's no way he got beamed to a different location than Shepard, because that was a clear point A to point B type of warp. And besides, when have we ever encountered a random placement warping machine in the Mass Effect universe? Never. Not once. The room Shepard warps into is clearly the starting path because there's nothing behind him except the wall, and there are no doors anywhere between him and the control panel. Therefore, Anderson should have come out in the same place as Shepard, which means his story doesn't add up. Why would he lie and say he followed Shepard in if he was already way ahead of him? Because it's not really Shepard, and it's not really Anderson. It's the Reapers making shit up to try and confuse Shepard in his already weakened state of mind. And now Anderson's name has gone from Anderson to Admiral Anderson. Why the sudden change? And there's yet another weird thing that Anderson says that still doesn't make sense.
Whoa,
Anderson?
one of the walls here just realigned itself. The place is shifting, changing.
He claims that he sees something resembling moving walls around him, but we don't see that anywhere. We never see it from where Shepard starts. We don't see it from where we see Anderson. We don't ever see anything that resembles a moving wall, so why is Anderson seeing it? Furthermore, the soldiers watching the battle take place from atop the hill claimed nobody survived. It was a pretty damn clear view from the top to the bottom, so not only would they have seen Shepard enter into the beam, but they also would have seen Anderson enter into the beam as well shortly after Shepard did. And even further, wouldn't Anderson be one of the people giving the orders to retreat because he was overseeing the entire operation? If what Anderson claims is true, then he would have seen Harbinger leaving, he would have seen Shepard enter the beam, and he would have asked for backup before going in. None of it adds up at all. But a weakened Shepard isn't sound enough mentally to figure this out when he's so focused on his mission, and neither are we, the players, capable of realizing this at the time. Sure, we all cocked our heads when he said he followed us in, but we just assumed it was true because we were in the moment, just like Shepard. And that's how indoctrination works, people. This one's about as verified as it gets, so let's move on to the next one. Can we talk about the scenery of the Citadel? In the first room, sure, it's creepy with all the dead bodies. Anderson claims that it reminds him of Shepard's descriptions of the Collector base. But you know what? It's exactly like the Collector base. The bodies are sickly scattered into piles, and amidst the chaos of the remains, there actually appears to be some type of organization. Someone put those bodies into piles, just like on the Collector base. Now, moving on to the next section of the Citadel, we see strange slices of metal moving up and down in waves generating electricity. This is, to the T, exactly the same engine we saw in the lair of the Shadow Broker DLC aboard the Shadow Broker's ship. He was supposed to be the only one in the entire galaxy who had a ship with an engine that big, moving in synchronization like that. Do you remember what they said the purpose of those engines were? It was to generate enough power to keep a ship that big afloat and simultaneously navigate through the storms and remain hidden, all at the same time. Now, somebody could argue that it would make sense for the Citadel to have engines like this due to its massive size and the fact that it basically just propelled itself inside its own internal mass relay to the Sol system, and therefore would need massive engines to do so. So I guess it would make at least some sense to have those engines. However, the next room is what keeps this piece of information alive. Upon ascending the ramp and seeing Anderson and the control panel, the room looks almost exactly like the Elusive Man's main room. You'd have to be a monkey not to notice the similarities because you were just there about 2 hours ago. Take all three of these rooms combined and the similarities between the memories that Shepard has of all these different places, it's simply uncanny. Now, because of the fact that the Reapers are the reason the Collectors organized and piled up dead bodies back on the Collector base in Mass Effect 2 to begin with, and because the Citadel would definitely need a giant engine to propel itself into another solar system, I'm going to leave this evidence as plausible. There's another tidbit of scenery we have to analyze though. This is something that I personally did notice, cocked my head at, and thought nothing of it while I was playing the first time. I want to say, I still think nothing of this theory now, and that something would be the 1M1 symbols found all around the Citadel and Catalyst after Shepard is hit. This is one piece of evidence I don't believe, not even for a second. Well, at least not in the way that it has been popularized and recognized by fans. The theory is that 1M1 actually has a hidden phrase or meaning. According to some optics theorists, 1, M, and then another 1 are the elements of an equation that stand for something called dioptry, which is another word for convergence. Now, convergence has 3 definitions. 1, the act of moving toward union or uniformity. 2, a meeting place. 3, the intersection of 3 electron beams for red, green, and blue onto a single pixel in a cathode ray tube. These all do apply to Mass Effect 3's ending somehow, the first being synthesis, the second being a reference to the Crucible, and the third obviously being a reference to the red, green, and blue options we see at the end. Very interesting, I have to say, but honestly, I cannot get behind this piece of evidence. I believe it's mere coincidence, to be honest, but if it works for you, then great. It just doesn't make sense to me personally. I suppose it's possible that BioWare really is hinting here, because they like to do that with a lot of numbers and equations, as shown in the past, but not directly inside of a game. This particular aspect of the 1M1 theory is further disproven by the fact that we can actually see these 1M1 stamps and the entire objects themselves present at the end of Mass Effect 1. It is very common knowledge that the Mass Effect 3 staff did not intend to make this red-blue-green ending as the final ending for the series. They initially had something completely different in mind revolving around dark matter, but the endings got leaked and they had to change it to this trash, which, by the way, is all the more reason they would make a last-minute ditch effort to add in the Indoctrination theory clues so that they could later redeem themselves since they were pressed for time. Anywho, it makes no sense for the 1M1 stamp to be present at the end of Mass Effect 1 if the whole convergence thing is really true, because it simply wasn't their plan from the get-go. Now, as much as I'm against it, I'm still not ready to bury this 1M1 theory just yet. The fact that it is present in Mass Effect 1 does help to prove something. Shepard already saw this before in his life, just like all the other elements in this pathway that we just talked about minutes ago. Initially, we just thought it was the Collector base references, the Shadow Broker references, and the Elusive Man rooms reference. And now this can be viewed as just another thing Shepard is remembering. As I said, the subconscious mind does weird things when we dream. It remembers random pieces of insignificant memory that you may not even have cognitively noticed while you were awake. This is true, proven fact in the real world. This 1M1 thing being present definitely fits that specific bill, so I'm reluctantly going to slap on another plausible here only due to that last saving grace possibility. That reminds me, the control panel we used at the end of the game, yeah, sorry folks, but that's not the right control panel. In Mass Effect 1, we see and use the main control panel to the Citadel during the confrontation with Saren. The real control panel to the Citadel is located in a place called the Citadel Tower on the Presidium, remember? How do we know it's the real control panel and that this one in Mass Effect 3 is not? Because at the end of the game we see Saren using the control panel in the Citadel Tower to take complete control over the Citadel and to close the wings of the Citadel around Sovereign in an effort to protect him. That's exactly what Shepard needs to do at the end of Mass Effect 3. Well, the opposite actually. He needs to open the wings to the Citadel to let the Crucible inside. It doesn't make any sense for there to be a second control panel because the first one was clearly the main control panel for the Citadel. Now, you could argue that after the destruction of the Citadel Tower in the first game, they may have needed to restructure the room with the control panel just a little bit, but not that much. The entire room was not completely decimated beyond repair, and certainly not enough to have to restructure the entire tower itself. I can see remodeling the inside of it, but those rooms had absolutely nothing in common with the Citadel Tower. This only adds to the indoctrination theory, because the Reapers were just using Shepard's memories to create a place he thought he knew. If the indoctrination theory turns out not to be true, then this makes absolutely no sense at all. And by the way, at the end of Mass Effect 3, if you look at the cutscenes, it looks like where Shepard is the Citadel Tower. It's like they're making it try to look like the Citadel Tower when it isn't. Because if you watch, the Crucible comes in and makes contact with the small point. That was the Citadel Tower, because that is exactly what Sovereign did in Mass Effect 1. He came in and landed and made contact with the Citadel Tower, almost exactly like the Crucible does. Now, this is important, because if it's made out to look like where Shepard is the Citadel Tower, it's clearly not from the inside. It has nothing to do with the Citadel Tower. It doesn't even look remotely close like the Citadel Tower. There's absolutely no way that they restructured it that much. Before, it was this high thing that resembled a chapel, and it was wide, and there was scaffolding, and there was areas you could see from above, and there were multiple staircases, and it was winding, and you could see it from the back all the way to the front. But when Shepard gets there in Mass Effect 3, it just looks like it's just some three-pronged room, and it's just some weird thing with a new engine that was never there before. It doesn't make sense. Now, there is simply no purpose to have made multiple main control panels. Why? Because then you could have one moron on the first control panel opening the wings of the Citadel, and then another moron in the second control panel closing the wings at the same time. It just doesn't make sense, and the Reapers are just too smart to incorporate a design flaw of that magnitude when they made the Citadel. So I'm proud of myself for thinking of this one. Go me! High fives all around. But no, seriously, it's hard to dispute this one, and it makes a lot of sense when you consider everything I've said. This one is indoctrination theory approved. Okay, moving on. This one is brief, but very interesting. Why does Shepard have unlimited ammo during this sequence, including the sequence leading up to the beam laser? Why does Shepard never even have to reload? And why can't Shepard kill the Keepers or Anderson even when firing directly at them? And why aren't the Keepers actually typing on anything? They're just waving their hands in the air. The last part you can argue was done for the simple effect of having fluid gameplay, but the gun questions remain strong. Nowhere else in the entire Mass Effect series have we had unlimited ammo that has never needed to reload, and we can't even see an ammo counter on the user interface. If this segment of the game is in fact reality, then why don't we have an ammo limit? Remember when you charged down the hill just a few minutes ago? You had an ammo limit there, and you had your ammo capacity displayed on the user interface as well. But as soon as you get hit with the beam from Harbinger, you automatically get infinite ammo, no need to reload, and no more ammo capacity display. It doesn't make any sense if this is supposed to be reality. Another confirmed piece of information in my book. Now let's get into the juicy stuff, shall we? We've met up with Captain Anderson, and the elusive man interrupts our sweet little reunion. Many people believe that these two people, the only other two people we see aboard the Citadel during this final scene, and the Keepers don't count because they never exhibited any type of character status for Shepard, they represent the two sides of Shepard's conscious mind. The first, Captain Anderson, is the part of Shepard's mind that is still resisting the Reaper indoctrination. The second, the elusive man, is representing the part of Shepard's mind that is succumbing to the Reaper indoctrination. Need proof? The developers made sure to put that into the game too, however subtle it may be. You see, the elusive man makes Shepard shoot Captain Anderson in his left abdomen. Note, to the player's point of view, it's on our right-hand side, but since Shepard and Anderson are facing each other, this really means we shoot Anderson in his left side. Moments later, when the confrontation with the elusive man is over and Captain Anderson passes away, or passes out, Shepard clutches his left abdomen and is bleeding profusely from it. He was not bleeding like that before, and he was never shot during the scene. That shield marauder that you killed before going up the warp to the Citadel shoots you in your right shoulder, not your left abdomen. These are two very different places, and going back to that, why doesn't Shepard show any signs of damage to his right shoulder after going into the warp beam? He should be bleeding excessively in his right shoulder upon our entry to the Citadel, just like his left abdomen is later, yet he's completely fine. We don't even see a bullet hole there. Yet when Anderson dies, who is representing the remainder of Shepard's mind, Shepard then automatically receives the same wounds that Captain Anderson had moments earlier. It's more than a coincidence. The developers put this in on purpose. Was it a mistake in placement? No. The Mass Effect team is notorious for its attention to little details like that, so they wouldn't screw something as important as bullet placement now. Also, the camera view shows an extremely deliberate close-up of Shepard's left abdomen gunshot wound. By the way, I'd like to interject here that my Collector's Edition guidebook has a snippet in it about how the Mass Effect team deliberately uses the camera as a storytelling mechanism. Therefore, this specific camera angle is of significant importance, otherwise they wouldn't have shown it. Shepard himself even looks slightly surprised by this wound because he lifts his hand up and looks at the fresh blood as if it is completely new to him. Moments later, he appears to lose consciousness when crawling to the control panel, just as Captain Anderson lost consciousness after being shot in his left abdomen moments earlier. Coincidence? I don't think so. And may I comment on how Shepard is completely fine after going up the floor panel elevator? He was practically dead 2 seconds ago, yet now he's up on his feet and is even capable of sprinting and jumping, as shown if you choose the synthesis option, which by the way, don't. Long explanation in a nutshell, the theory of Anderson and the Elusive Man being representations of Shepard's mind seem to be very clearly true, due to the bullet hole example. Now, I said I'd go back to the growling sound, so I'm going to do that here. When Shepard is resisting the Elusive Man and trying to persuade him to help, we hear a very, very distinct growling sound.
I can't.
I underestimated you, Shepard.
What?
I warned you. Control is the means to survival. Control of the Reapers, and of you, if necessary.
They're controlling you.
This is the exact same sound we heard earlier in the dream sequence background noises. This also happens to be the exact same growling sound that we hear when Anderson interrupts the conversation that Shepard has way in the beginning of the game with the little boy while he's hiding in the ventilation ducts.
Shepard! In here!
According to some of the Mass Effect novels, growling just like that is said to be heard when Reaper indoctrination has failed, or in this case, when the Elusive Man hallucination, when the attempt is failing. What does this mean? It gives more evidence to the idea that these dream sequences were actually indoctrination attempts. It also lends to the theory that the little boy is actually a Reaper incantation invented to manipulate Shepard, but there's way more to talk about that later. Finally, this also means that the conversation with the Elusive Man wasn't really happening. It was just yet another Reaper indoctrination attempt that failed. There's just one more thing about this scene that needs to be addressed. The Elusive Man's magical space powers. I'm also combining this section with the fact that the Reapers don't want to kill Shepard. There is seriously no reason that the Elusive Man should all of a sudden have these new powers, regardless of any Reaper enhancements. If the Reapers were truly capable of such feats, why in the hell didn't they do this to stop Shepard all those times he was tearing apart the Reaper troops, or when he stopped Saren, or when he put the smackdown on 2 Reapers, or when he was running to the beam? The answer is because they don't actually have that power, and neither does the Elusive Man. The closest thing in the Mass Effect universe would be stasis biotics, but even with stasis you are not able to manipulate and control your target to physically do as you wish. Not to mention the Elusive Man never had biotic powers to begin with. Let's play pretend for a second and assume that this is real and the Elusive Man does have this power. Why then doesn't he just make Shepard shoot himself? It would be over and done with. Problem solved. Reapers win. The reason? Because the Reapers need Shepard, which is why they're trying to indoctrinate him instead of kill him. That laser beam Harbinger hit Shepard with outside of the warp beam is capable of decimating entire buildings and army units in a single sweep. You mean to tell me that a direct hit with one on Commander Shepard didn't instantly kill him? That is proof right there that the Reapers don't want to kill Shepard, but instead want to simply make him their own. Because if you recall, humans are the very first race the Reapers have ever felt worthy of modeling a full-blown Reaper after, and Commander Shepard is the avatar of humanity after all. To have him on their side would be instant victory now, and for millions of cycles to come. And did you notice all of the black ambience waves surrounding Shepard during this mind control event? They looked an awful lot like the oily shadows the Rachni Queen spoke of, didn't they? The only other time you see oily shadows in the game is during the dreams, suggesting that this confrontation with the elusive man didn't ever happen. The creeping oily shadows in this scene could also be a further representation of the elusive man who is representing the part of Shepard's mind that is succumbing to indoctrination. These aspects are in open and closed cases in favor of the theory. So I lied. I have just one more thing to address before we go up to meet with the Ghost Child, Admiral Hackett. Hackett is the reason Commander Shepard even bothers going over to the super secret elevator pad that sits before the control panel that ultimately takes him to the upper level. But how does Admiral Hackett know Shepard is on the Citadel? How does Admiral Hackett even know that Shepard is still alive? Nowhere in the entire walk from the laser beam strike by Harbinger to the control panel did Shepard stop and try to radio Admiral Hackett to tell him that he made it and that he's alive. Neither did Captain Anderson. So how does Admiral Hackett know? Furthermore, since we're assuming Admiral Hackett has magic telepathy now all of a sudden, and he does know that Shepard is aboard the Citadel, then why didn't he send reinforcements to help? You'd think he would at least try to offer some form of physical support for Shepard on the biggest mission of the entire series, especially after knowing that the entire fleet just got decimated that was running down the hill a few moments ago. Once again, it doesn't add up. And I stand by my belief that the BioWare writing staff is not foolish enough to make this kind of an oversight. They have crafted a beautiful storyline that has captivated us for nearly 5 years. Why now would they begin to falter in the last 20 minutes of the game in so many different ways? They wouldn't. Admiral Hackett only knows Shepard is on board because Shepard believes he does thanks to the Reaper influence. There is purely no answer to this question, which is why this is yet another supporting piece of evidence. Okay, I know I told you guys twice now that this was going to be the last piece of evidence before we go up the beam, but I lied again. This really is the last one though, you can trust me on that. I just want to quickly interject something. When the elusive man shoots himself, there is no blood. Yet, with all the other characters in the entire series who have ever done that or who have ever died in general, there's always been some form of blood or something. But with the elusive man, we don't see any splatter, we don't see any puddle, and we don't see any signs of any damage whatsoever, further showing that this is just a figment of Shepard's imagination. Okay, I promised you we'd go up and meet the creepy Death Child, so that's what we'll do now. We've taken the elevator up, looking as limp can be, and only get up when commanded to by the incantation of the child that has been haunting Shepard the entire game. The very first thing that should jump out at you is that Shepard is now physically capable of moving again. Why? Adrenaline maybe, but there really is no solid explanation for this one, nor is there any supporting evidence for this one to go any further on it, so I'll just leave this as a plausible piece of evidence because I can't really go in either direction with it. Well, since we just talked about floating up on elevators, now would be a good time to bring up another fan-made theory, that Shepard has been hovering off the ground a bit ever since he gets hit by Harbinger. This one sounded too crazy when I first heard it, so I went into the game myself to analyze the entire scene from when Shepard gets hit all the way to the conversation with the little kid. And you know what I found? He is floating, perhaps about an inch off the ground, so subtle you barely notice it unless you look for it. But don't get all happy just yet. There's a reason he's floating, and that reason is because everybody floats in this game. It's just a mechanic of the characters on the map sometimes. I sifted through game footage that I had laying around to find evidence of this, and it happens very, very frequently. Sometimes they float to ridiculous heights too. I found the scene with Garrus levitating like a boss to be particularly funny, so I figured I'd take a screenshot and show you. So yes, Shepard was floating, but sorry, apparently that's completely normal in the Mass Effect universe. 5 years of playing these games and I never noticed that before. Who'da thunk it? This one gets a big X factor. Let's talk about the child himself now, as well as the dream sequences. Kill two birds with one stone. The Ghost Kid is obviously a manifestation of Shepard's imagination, regardless of whether this is a dream or not. But because that's true, so too can we assume that it lends to the indoctrination theory at least a little bit. This has been talked about before, but the child himself is never noticed by anyone in the entire game other than Commander Shepard. Nobody helps that kid onto the escape ship. Captain Anderson doesn't notice the kid speaking in the same room as him, and then the kid just suddenly disappears without making a sound when Anderson interrupts Shepard. Air ducts are loud as hell, and remember that Reaper growl after the introduction? And guess what? In my collector's edition art book, there is a page showing the little boy in which it says, "One child would be the face of the people on Earth whom Shepard could not save." You can take this at face value, or you can take it a bit deeper and realize that this snippet just basically admitted that the child is a representation rather than a physical being. But that's weak, I'll admit, so let's keep talking. The dream sequences. There are 3 of them. We know about the oily shadows already and the slow motion movements, the same slow motion movements that Shepard is stuck with from the moment he gets hit with the laser to the moment we beat the game. We even hear voices of the deceased all around us, but we haven't examined the kid himself inside the dreams. Now, the subconscious mind is supposed to be extremely powerful. These dreams, or rather Reaper indoctrination attempts, are an effort to break Shepard while he is in his most vulnerable state of mind, sleeping. But when we dream, our subconscious mind plays a huge role in the process, and in each and every single dream, it ends with the image of the child burning. We are left to assume that this means Shepard is just feeling upset over not being able to save the kid, but in the last dream, Shepard sees himself catching the kid, and they both burn while looking happy and content. This is Shepard's subconscious mind fighting off the indoctrination attempt, telling Shepard that if he trusts the little boy, he's going to burn, metaphorically. Yet they are smiling, because the Reapers are trying to persuade Shepard that he should trust the little boy. This is why the Catalyst takes on the form of a little boy, because the Catalyst is just the Reapers doing another indoctrination attempt on Shepard. Booyah! This is getting easy. And what's even more interesting is that every time we see this child in the escaping Earth level, he can actually be seen by some form of a caution sign in the background. This is never done with any other player or character, and very seldom do we actually see any type of caution sign throughout the game. Yet, throughout the entire opening level, every single scene that this child is in, at least at some point, you can see him standing very clearly next to a caution sign. And while this is certainly interesting, I have to stay with the plausible on this one because we can't really determine whether or not this is just a coincidence or whether it was intended. Next, I'd like to bring up the topic of the child's voice. As others have suggested, his voice is clearly a combination of the child's voice plus the male and female Shepard voice actors on the left and right audio channels respectively, meaning the female Shepard voice can be heard through your left speaker and the male Shepard voice can be heard through your right speaker. It helps to wear headphones if you don't believe me, but this is true.
But we found a way to stop that from happening, a way to restore order for the next cycle.
By wiping out organic life?
No, we harvest advanced civilizations, leaving the younger ones alone. Just as we left your people alive the last time we were here.
But you killed the rest.
We helped them ascend, so they could make way for new life, storing the old life in Reaper form.
But the question is, why was this necessary to do? It seems like a lot of work to do on the developers and the voice actors' part to have to recite this kid's lines. If they were just trying to go for a pure echo effect with an omniscient being, all they had to do was just add an echo effect to the kid's voice. I could do that here in Audacity, but it just seems like a lot of extra work to go through for nothing. One possible answer would be because the child is just a manifestation of Shepard's mind. It's strange, sure, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything in terms of the indoctrination theory other than the fact that the Reapers could be using Shepard's prior hallucinations in conjunction with his own voice in an effort to further indoctrinate him. But anyway, because there's no definitive answer for why the developers chose to do this, and that there is also no further evidence supporting or debunking this piece of evidence, this one is going to get slapped with a plausible sticker. I mean, it's obvious that the voice channels are male and female Shepards, but it's plausible because it doesn't have a definitive connection to the indoctrination theory one way or the other. The very next thing I'd like to talk about here is that Shepard is not being himself right now. Shepard has a naturally inquisitive nature about him, constantly asking every single question and obtaining the maximum amount of information possible before making any rash decisions. Yet here, during his conversation with the boy, he only asks the most basic questions needed to understand what the boy is telling him and doesn't ever stop to question it as the truth. Shepard has questioned the living hell out of every Prothean VI he's encountered thus far, so why wouldn't he do it to the Catalyst now? You could argue that it's because he's so badly wounded that he doesn't think he has much time left, but it is purely out of character for Commander Shepard to simply be absorbing the boy's word like butter on warm bread. This is because Commander Shepard isn't fully in control of his mind anymore. Remember how the two representations of his mind just died, quote-unquote, downstairs? That would certainly have left him even more mentally depleted, causing him to just carry along with any conversation and taking everything to be 100% truth. And are you noticing a pattern here? This is the very same type of mental state that people who are being indoctrinated exhibit when they are in the final stages. On the outside, sure, in the physical world, they appear confused, easily startled, and paranoid, but they are doing it because they are succumbing to the Reaper indoctrination effects and believing everything that the voices are telling them, without question, just like what's happening to Shepard now. But Shepard isn't acting paranoid or spastic yet because he's not fully indoctrinated. It's not until the late stages or until the very end of the indoctrination process that the victim actually shows those signs. However, they're all doing it to begin with because of the influence of the Reapers, because they believe what they're telling them, which is why he isn't being himself. Is that not a good enough explanation for you? Then fine, how about this one? When we dream, we're not fully in control of our minds. We often do things that seem very out of character for us, just like Shepard is appearing before us right now. Therefore, I believe this is a bona fide aspect of the indoctrination theory. Moving on, the child is a manipulative, lying asshole who clearly has an objective of his own hidden behind his biased words. Examine the entire scene when Shepard is talking to the Ghost Kid, and you'll begin to see how his words and even his voice inflections revolve around his inner agendas. He claims he is the Catalyst, so we are assuming the Catalyst is also a sentient/synthetic being of its own. We'll go along with this assumption for the purpose of this video, even though we truly believe that this is all an illusion. The first thing he talks about is the destruction option, and he talks about it in a very negative mannerism, contradicting Shepard multiple times. When the Catalyst is explaining the cycle process, Shepard inquires about how they have been wiping out all organic life, to which the Catalyst responds with a resounding no, and then talks about how they leave the lesser civilizations alone, such as how they left the humans alive last time they were there. He was trying to entice empathy from Shepard for the Reapers. He defends the cycle in saying that their goal is to, quote, help them ascend so they could make way for new life, quote. Shepard never even stops to question the Catalyst on what he means by ascend. Ascend to where? And what happens when they ascend? What new life? Wouldn't these traditionally be investigate questions on the left-hand side for Shepard to ask after hearing something like that? But no, he just goes along with it. The child then goes into a phase of trying to convince Shepard on the repercussions of choosing Destroy. He states that it will wipe out the Geth completely, which is true. But he also says that it will kill Shepard because he is partly synthetic, and that the cycle will just start again when new generations make new synthetics. But he's deliberately down-talking an important issue that has been following us throughout the series: hope. Hope has been the main theme of this game, along with survival. With these two options in mind, the only logical choice would be Destroy because that ends the Reaper invasion right now and once and for all, and then you're just left with the hope that it won't happen again down the road. The other options do not leave any type of hope, which has been the recurring theme. Like Shepard says, what's the point in being alive if you don't have hope? It's the option that the series has been talking about over the last 5 years. The other two options of control and synthesis are eliminating that hope by doing exactly what the Reapers have been doing all along. They are controlling the growth of the galaxy through force, or by finally achieving eternal self-preservation through synthesis, which is just another hidden form of control because it would effectively turn people into husks. The child also overlooks the fact that he's wrong. Commander Shepard just got the Geth and Quarians to work together earlier in the game, something that deliberately defies everything that this Catalyst or boy is saying. And by the way, Shepard doesn't die if you choose Destroy. In fact, choosing Destroy is the only way you can make Shepard survive in the entire game out of all the endings. So why would the all-knowing Catalyst deliberately lie to him about that unless he was trying to dissuade Shepard from choosing Destroy? The answer is because the Catalyst, aka the Reapers using indoctrination on Shepard, are after the same goals as Shepard: survival. That's why the Catalyst is trying to make Shepard believe that choosing Destroy is wrong, because they will not survive any longer. But enough about Destroy. When the boy talks about control, you can hear an uplifting tone to his voice, as if he's using the power of suggestion to get Shepard to do as he wishes. He says, "Or do you think you can control us?" He's saying it to Shepard in the same way that you would speak to a child. For example, you can either do what you want and get in trouble, or you can listen to me and get what you want. But in the end, if Shepard picks control, he is decimated by the electricity and absorbed into the catalyst, which is exactly what the Reapers have wanted all along. The ending cutscene of the Reapers leaving if Shepard picks control is only a figment of Shepard's imagination, just like all the other endings. What would actually happen if Shepard did this in real life would be that the Reapers would just absorb Shepard as they did to the Elusive Man and continue with their cycles. In the final option, Synthesis, the child is trying to make it appear as though Synthesis is the ultimate neutral answer. This is made apparent by the fact that it has taken center stage on the Crucible, quite literally. Traditionally, when a person is given 3 options with 2 extremes and 1 representing balance, we will gravitate towards making the choice of balance. But how is Synthesis balance? Synthesis would be an abomination of life. When the universe was initially created, no matter how you think it was, there was no technology. We, organics, created technology. We use them to our advantage to make our lives easier. They are our tools, nothing more. But do you remember what Legion asked Shepard? Does this unit have a soul? As much as you want to hold Legion and cry with him and go, "Yes, Legion, yes you do!" he actually doesn't. It's a sad truth that needs to be realized and accepted by both the player and Shepard in order to stop themselves from picking Synthesis. Legion was artificially created by the Quarians with metal and electricity to carry out chores. As soon as those diodes are done firing, Legion will no longer function, just like your computer, plain and simple. Does your computer have a soul? That's what I thought, and I created mine, so I didn't put a soul in it when I made it. What about if Siri on your phone suddenly asks you whether or not she has a soul? What would you say then? And look, I'll understand if you don't want to believe me about the Geth not having souls, fine. But at least hear me out on this. Assuming they do have souls, and assuming I'm wrong, let's go back to Mass Effect 2 during the Arrival DLC. Commander Shepard effectively single-handedly wiped out the rest of the Batarian race in an effort to stop the Reapers from arriving. This would just be another casualty of war if we eliminate all the Geth and all synthetics. I'm not saying that committing an act of genocide is justifiable under any circumstances, but I am saying that this is the lesser of the 3 evils, because if we choose control, Shepard just gets absorbed and the Reapers continue along with their killing spree. And if we pick Synthesis, then the indoctrination is just going to be completed because Shepard is accepting the Reapers into his mind. And if this is real life and not the indoctrination theory, then guess what? This is still an even bigger act of genocide than choosing Destroy is, because we'd be effectively changing the DNA of every living being and every synthetic being without their permission. So it's even worse if it's in real life. The Quarians went too far in that they gave the Geth too much intelligence, artificial intelligence, which resulted in the Geth thinking for themselves and therefore acting like organics. Now, as we all know, the goal of every organic is self-preservation and survival, and therefore that belief is reflected in any synthetic that they create with artificial intelligence. This was exemplified by the Geth, and it is now being shown again by the Reapers giving Shepard an option to choose Synthesis. If Shepard picks Synthesis, the Reapers are going to live forever, assuming that this is real and not a theory of indoctrination, along with any other technology, and they will be combined with the DNA of organics. This does not benefit organics in any way. It only benefits synthetics, much in the same way that a parasite is the only beneficiary off of a host, but the host does not benefit off of the parasite. The Reapers came up with this awesome idea of self-preservation and are presenting it to Commander Shepard in a positive light, but behind the mask of pretty glowing beams, the sinister intent still lies. Here's my point. Since this is all just an indoctrinated dream, Shepard is openly saying to the Reapers, "Sure, take my mind, let's share it together," and therefore he fully succumbs to indoctrination. The bottom line is that this kid is a lying asshole, because in reality he is just the Reapers talking to Shepard. Did you understand all of that? Hopefully you did, because it makes for a pretty damn solid case in the indoctrination theory. I want to briefly interject something that has surfaced in regard to the ending. This is an extremely quick interjection, but this is also very beneficial to the theory and is one of the more recent finds. Somebody in the ocean of people on the BioWare forums posted up an image they found while perusing the files of Mass Effect 3 on their computer. For the section containing the files for the synthesis choice, this little gem was found. In case you don't know what you're looking at, this is a very peculiar file with a very specific name of Dream Foliage. But wait, Dream Foliage? That basically says it all right there. Why give it that specific of a name? And this is from the developers themselves. If the indoctrination theory is wrong, and the ending of Mass Effect 3 seriously happens the way we saw it in-game, then why would they label that particular file as dream foliage rather than just foliage or new planet foliage or something along those lines? It's also important to note that these were not included in any of the dream sequences that we saw. Dream foliage, as the title, is blatantly telling us that the planet we see in the ending cutscenes is literally just a dream, and as we all know, that fits the whole principle behind the indoctrination theory pretty perfectly. Confirmed. Now, going off even further on the three choices thing is the concept of the overall ambience of the Crucible room. Ambience meaning the surrounding colors and the music. It is extremely obvious that we see the Paragon blue color matching up with Control, and Renegade red matching up with Destroy. And by the way, they should make candy or drinks out of that or something, it's just got too perfect of a name. Anyway, this is why giving Synthesis a green color makes the player even more tempted to go all half robot, half human on the Reaper's asses, because we've never been presented with that type of option before. It's always just been red versus blue, there's never been a green option anywhere. But, because the indoctrination theory states that this is all Reaper influence in Shepard's mind, we must assume that they are deliberately playing on Shepard's morals and personal values here. Hence, why there are color-coordinated options to begin with. I mean, seriously? Why else would there be color-coordinated options? It just doesn't make any sense. Like, weren't the people building the Crucible weirded out over the fact that they were just building this nonsense? It says to install blue LED lights over here and red LED lights over here. Weird. Maybe they were just holding the instructions upside down and accidentally swapped the red and blue options, because that's certainly what the Reapers are making it seem like. But seriously, it makes a lot of sense if you give it a good thought experiment. Over the course of the series, we have put our full faith in Captain Anderson. He's been the true representation of Paragon status. Meanwhile, the Elusive Man has been shady and corrupted every step of the way, representing the Renegade status. Yet another reflection of why those two were in the control room as representations of Shepard's mind. When the Catalyst is telling Shepard about his options, we see hallucinations. A hallucination inside of a hallucination? What? Anyway, we see a hallucination of Anderson choosing to destroy and the Elusive Man choosing to control, but that doesn't coincide at all with the entire series. Why change it now all of a sudden? The answer is because the Reapers made it this way. They reversed the good old color coordination in an attempt to dissuade Shepard from picking Destroy. It's all a clear facade, a ruse, a hoax, bullshit for those of you less wordy. From the very beginning of our game, our mission was to destroy the Reapers. Only in the last 5 minutes of the entire series has that belief suddenly reversed, and it's all because the Reaper influence being pressured on Shepard now. The other aspect of the ambience in the room is that of the sound. I had read that if you walk to either Control or Synthesis, the background music takes a dark turn and gets creepier, whereas if you go to the Destroy option, the background music is still humming, but it has a higher pitch to it, a hopeful pitch almost. Now before I go off on that any further, I'd like to address the humming aspect. Now, traditionally, humming is a big indication of being indoctrinated, as we've seen from other people who have been indoctrinated and just from other aspects of the game. Now, ever since we got hit with that laser, the background music has had a very distinct hum to it at different times. It's changed, but it's always been there, and right now it's very distinct, no matter where you're standing. So I've decided to attack this theory myself by going back and reaching that point again. After spending a good half hour listening to the music as I went to each option and examined my surroundings, it turns out that this music aspect is false. The humming aspect is true, but the music is just a looped background that changes over time. It has absolutely nothing to do with where Shepard is standing. I did, however, notice something interesting: the lighting. Right from the standing point, before you even begin walking, look to your left. Now look to your right. You'll notice that there is almost something resembling the sun glowing in very close proximity to the Destroy option. Yet, that's Earth in the background. We know this because we see clouds. Clouds do not exist in space, and we're currently hovering over Earth at the moment, as we know. Why would something be glowing that brightly from Earth? Nothing does that on Earth, yet we still see it as plain as day. It probably means nothing, but it's interesting to note how light and warm the colors look near the Destroy option, even in the sky, whereas things look bleak and dark on the Control option. Now, the music theory is busted wide open, however the humming theory is still definitely there, and the general theory about the colorings being secretly reversed to confuse Shepard is still an extremely plausible, if not proven, aspect, and it makes sense if the Reapers are trying to in fact indoctrinate Shepard, because this would be an extremely easy way for them to manipulate him. Now, I've already blabbed about the three choices, but there is something more that you need to know about them. The first thing is that the choices of control and synthesis have already been chosen by other indoctrinated characters throughout the series. It was well known that Saren was indoctrinated during the first Mass Effect, and do you remember what his goal was? He wanted to unite humanity with the Reapers, combine them together to usher in a new era of life, or so that's what the Reapers promised him, and that's exactly what is being promised to Shepard right now. As for control, well, we already know that the Elusive Man was indoctrinated, and that he tried to control the Reapers himself throughout the entire game of Mass Effect 3. When we first heard about that idea, we thought it was crazy, just like how we thought it was crazy for Saren to want synthesis. But now that Shepard, and in effect us, are being presented with these options, the lines are getting blurry between what is right and wrong, and that's what indoctrination does to you, remember? So Saren and the Elusive Man both didn't get what they wanted, so they obviously chose wrong. But do you remember their eyes? The eyes of an indoctrinated person are a huge indication. It sticks out like a sore thumb. The eyes are a very prominent part of being indoctrinated because they begin to glow and have two little orbs on the lower left and right hand corners of the iris, as well as another orb on the front area, creating a little bit of a triangle. Saren had it, and so did the Elusive Man. But guess what else? If Shepard chooses either control or synthesis, he gets indoctrinated eyes before he dies. This is a dead giveaway that he has finally succumbed to the Reaper's influence. If Shepard picks Destroy, on the other hand, he looks fine and his eyes are normal. If anything, Shepard looks to be physically healthier after picking Destroy, like he knows he's picked the right answer. Now, there is truly no way in high hell that the developers made this big of an oversight. They were already pressed for time, yet they went the extra mile to add in those eyes specifically for those two choices. Don't believe me? Just ask the Collector's Edition guidebook. There is a full article on how the developers paid key attention to the eyes of every single character on a regular basis called The Eyes Have It. And guess what? It's headlined with a picture of the Elusive Man's indoctrinated eyes. They used the eyes to tell a story of their own. The eyes were always being examined and changed in every single scene by the developers, so there's just absolutely no way that they overlooked this part of the game. Now, the only counter-arguments I've been able to find for this are the fact that Shepard is just being absorbed into the catalyst, or that he's just being turned with the synthetic energy in his body now, but neither of those make any sense, and the second one actually doesn't even correlate with the control option. So why are his eyes changing? If his eyes were just changing because he was going into the catalyst, then why do they honestly still have the same orbs as the indoctrination? Why aren't they just glowing? So for me, neither of those explanations hold any water. This is very telling, and in my personal opinion, it is a dramatically strong factor in favor of the indoctrination theory. I want to briefly go back to another piece of evidence that I came up with myself, and it revolves around the idea about how the Star Child is quite literally a manifestation of the Reapers themselves. I touched upon this earlier when I explained why he's lying, but I didn't actually explain why he's just the Reapers. Well, for one, he tells you,
I know you've thought about destroying us.
I know you've thought about destroying us. Us? Who's us? He's talking like he's speaking on behalf of the Reapers. Yet earlier he told us, I am the Catalyst. He can't be the Catalyst when he's also a Reaper manifestation. But seriously, I just can't get over that. Why would he say us when he shouldn't be affected at all by Shepard's decisions? Furthermore, that statement makes no sense whatsoever unless he really is just a Reaper manifestation. Why? Because Shepard has definitely never thought about destroying the Catalyst or a Star Child he's never met before. He's only thought about destroying the Reapers. So why is this line in the game unless it's the developers explicitly telling us what the Star Child really is? I'm not done yet either. Oh no. Go ahead and pick all three options. Watch what the kid does. Pick Destroy and the Star Child vanishes almost instantly with the camera never showing his face. Based on the camera angle chosen and the quickness with which he disappears, we can assume that he leaves in what looks to be an angry manner. Yet pick Control and he lingers. His face is also shown. And if you look hard enough, you can even make out the tiniest of a smirk for a brief second before he finally leaves. Pick Synthesis on the other hand, and we never see him at all. This I honestly don't understand whatsoever. I can't even come up with an explanation, good or bad, so just take the first two examples as supporting evidence. Or not, that's fine too. But there's absolutely no way you can argue against me with the statement of, I know you've thought about destroying us. If you want to disagree with me, just think about it for a few minutes. There's honestly no other logical explanation for him to be saying that, other than him being a manifestation of the Reapers talking to Shepard, which directly relates and supports the indoctrination theory significantly, because this means that Shepard isn't talking to the mystical sentient catalyst, but he's instead talking to the Reapers, possibly even Harbinger himself because it was his beam and because of his massive vendetta against Shepard for Mass Effect 2, and also considering the fact that throughout the entire series, Harbinger has been made out to look like he's the leader of the Reapers. It's never been explicitly said, but it makes a lot of sense, and it would also make sense for him to be the one talking to Shepard through the Star Child. Anyway, this one's another solid confirmation, especially when you factor in the previous evidence explained just a few minutes earlier about how the Star Child is lying. It syncs up perfectly with the fact that he's actually just the Reapers talking to Shepard. I would also like to add in one more thing about the final scenes of the game that have just transpired. Did it ever cross your mind that maybe the developers were making it look like you, the player, were being indoctrinated? I don't mean in real life, of course, but throughout the entire game, we are Commander Shepard. We know what he knows, we make him do as we wish, we even get to shape him in our own image. As the character we control in the game, he is literally our physical representation of our minds within the world of Mass Effect. He is the vessel for our minds to travel through and interact with the Mass Effect universe. That sounds all metaphysical, but when you really consider it literally, on a purely technical aspect of how video games work, it's undeniably true. Since we command Shepard, no pun intended, with a controller, we are able to enact our own personalities and decisions through that controller and into him. We are Commander Shepard throughout the entire series, therefore we are being indoctrinated. As you hopefully recall, the whole point behind indoctrination is that you don't know you're being indoctrinated. It happens subtly over a period of time. You hallucinate, you dream, you hear voices, and all of these things have happened to Commander Shepard over the course of the game, every single one of them. This means that all of these subtle clues that we've been talking about in this entire video are actually true. The developers had to have been going that route, and it completely went over 99% of players' heads. If they came out and openly stated that Commander Shepard is indoctrinated, teehee, then it wouldn't make any sense because we've never had any sort of narration in the series thus far when we were in control of Commander Shepard, so why would they start now? It's not BioWare's style. To me, this is one of the biggest pieces of evidence in support of the theory. You can deny it all you want, but this one isn't about opinion, it's about proven fact. Since we just talked about us being indoctrinated, I want to touch upon the debate of whether or not Commander Shepard can be indoctrinated at all. Some people who are against this theory state that Shepard is immune to the indoctrination, but the answer is yes, he can be indoctrinated. He's not a superhero, he's just a man or woman like the rest of us. Shepard is remarkably strong-willed, as quoted by Liara and paraphrased by many other characters throughout the series, but he's not immune to indoctrination. And if anyone in the entire galaxy should have been feeling the effects of indoctrination by now, it would definitely be Commander Shepard. He's been in close proximity with Reaper technology, was aboard a derelict Reaper, has fought indoctrinated enemies for years, and has been around Reaper artifacts and has fought multiple Reapers directly. Even one of those elements is enough for the indoctrination process to begin, let alone all of them. That's the point of the end of the game. It's all beginning to catch up with him. To be honest, if the indoctrination theory turns out not to be true, then we have a massive plot hole on our hands in that why wasn't Shepard ever feeling the effects of indoctrination throughout the series? This has to be it. It just makes too damn much sense for it not to be. Another solid supporting factor, cut and dry in my opinion. Okay, so now we've made our choice. Shepard saw through the ruse and picked destroy. The Reapers got bombed to hell and back. Wait, no they didn't, because it's all just one big dream, right? So that means the ending still hasn't happened yet. This is where stuff gets really confusing. Wait, wasn't it confusing already? Anyway, basically nobody understands how the hell your squad gets on the Normandy with the Joker and escapes the cosmic explosion emanating from the Crucible. Shouldn't they have been right next to Shepard charging down the hill? They weren't when we ran down the hill as we saw Shepard going alone, but that doesn't mean they just up and left for no reason. Even if they did and turned out to be huge assholes who don't care about Shepard at all, which we know isn't the case, how in the great kingdom of Candyland did they make it to the Normandy? It's either teleportation or bust, and the good news is Jessica Marizan, the community manager at BioWare, has tweeted that the squad is not teleporting. Can't explain now though to keep my feed spoiler free. If they weren't teleporting, then what? The answer would be to this that They simply are not teleporting, and the only reason they made it there is because Shepard dreamt that they made it there, because it's all a dream. It's just not physically possible, even in the Mass Effect universe, for them to have made it on the Normandy, and then again for the Normandy to have escaped that explosion. In one piece, at that. But anyway, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I'm going for confirmed just because of the logic behind it and because of the Twitter post. And now, quite possibly one of the best pieces of evidence that I have been able to find myself, in conjunction with something that the fans have been saying, is straight from the horse's mouth. The Collector's Edition guidebook gives minimal spoilers at the end of the game, but they do have a full list on the very last page of the campaign walkthrough that illustrates all of the possible endings and how to achieve them. This is a picture of that page straight from my personal guidebook. Notice anything? In 2 of the possible outcomes, it says, Shepard lives. But there is physically no way, not even in the Mass Effect universe with all the future tech they have, that Shepard would survive not only a Citadel plus Crucible-wide explosion when he's at the source of it, but then immediately afterwards survive a descent back to London. Yet in 2 different endings, we are shown a brief video of Shepard lying on the ground, surrounded by London rubble, taking in a breath, armor intact, and this is verified by the official Collector's Edition guidebook as Shepard surviving the events at the end. This is undisputable evidence that the ending was just one big dream, struggle, hallucination, or whatever else you want to call it inside of Shepard's mind. Because black and white, plain and simple, there is just no way he could have survived, yet the guidebook that was published and printed and given the official stamp by BioWare openly admits that Shepard does survive. Hands down, this is quite possibly the most convincing piece of evidence that has surfaced to date. Try and dispute this one all you want, but deep down in your heart you know there is absolutely no possible way for Shepard to have survived all of that, yet our guidebooks in conjunction with that final scene tell us differently. Oh, and remember the beginning of Mass Effect 2 where Shepard actually dies? Do you remember why he dies? It's because an explosion aboard the Normandy actually propels Shepard outside of the Normandy and he suffocates to death in space. And he wasn't even actually hit by any of the explosions, it just propelled him out. In this particular instance, the Crucible and the Citadel, which is like 1,000 times bigger than the Normandy was, both explode with Shepard inside, so he definitely would have been affected, and then propelled into space, and he still survives. Yet, the BioWare staff have already told us that that's not possible given the events in Mass Effect 2. And by the way, do you want proof that it actually was London rubble and not Citadel rubble? Well, first of all, it makes no sense for it to be Citadel or Crucible rubble because it just got blown the fuck up with Shepard inside it. Second, the rubble Shepard is shown to be laying in is not metal, it's concrete, rock. There's even a building reminiscent to the scenery you see in the London level in the background. Want more proof? Look at the concrete. You can see tile marks like square foot tilings. Now look at the London level again. You see that tiling effect everywhere on the ground. Oh, and guess what? On the Citadel, no tiling patterns like that anywhere. So suck on that, naysayers. This gem is true, and it almost single-handedly confirms the entire theory. And if the indoctrination theory isn't correct, well then shit, this breathing scene makes absolutely no sense, and neither does the fact that BioWare has already confirmed that Shepard survives. I just call it like I see it, people. Confirmed, confirmed, confirmed. The indoctrination theory is the most compelling one out there to explain the confusing events that transpired at the end of Mass Effect 3, and I believe the most important thing for players to realize is this. It is not important whether or not BioWare intended for this theory to happen. It fits perfectly with every game in the series, and it makes for one damn good, epic, mind-blowing ending. If the new DLC coincides with the indoctrination theory, they can get off scot-free saying it was their master plan all along, and Mass Effect will be redeemed as one of the best series in history. It's either that or go down as one of the worst series in history. Which one do you think they'll choose? I believe they're going to go with a hybrid of this and say Shepard was indoctrinated up until he made his decision, and everything after that actually happened, because otherwise BioWare would have to completely redo the ending all over again, and they've already said they wouldn't. And in addition to that, it's a lot of work. Or is it a lot of work? It seems like BioWare may have already come up with a final battle-styled ending and scrapped it according to the art book that came with the Collector's Edition game in conjunction with some of their previous press comments. Here's a picture of what they wanted to make the Elusive Man look like. Now here's what it says. One of the plans on the drawing board was to have the Elusive Man turn into a Reaper creature for the final battle. What final battle? Where was I? There was a final battle? What? We never got a final battle, not unless you count the conversation we had with the Elusive Man as the final confrontation. But how can that be considered a battle? That's just a poor choice of words, because in the gaming industry, when you say final battle, you mean final boss fight. Although, I suppose the indoctrination theory would state that the final battle of the game was the battle going on in Shepard's mind. Wonderful. But for the indoctrination theory to be true, that would mean that the final moments of the game remain to be seen. My point in bringing this up is that it could mean that BioWare plans on delivering us a final battle with the Elusive Man, in the literal sense, during this upcoming DLC, even if they choose to pick a different form for him. It's just strange, because throughout the art book they keep talking as though there was this big epic final battle when there wasn't one. Why would they do that? I believe the demons over at EA pressured them for time, they had to cut some rather important things, got rushed towards the end, and now they have to fix the ending with a DLC. Despite the fact that I noticed this myself, I don't even really believe it as supporting evidence. I believe they were going to make a final boss fight, but I also believe that they aren't going to include one in the upcoming DLC, regardless of what the art book says. Take this one how you want it, people. I just thought it was interesting to add. The fans want a good ending. We want our minds blown, and that is exactly what this indoctrination theory is doing. Even if it wasn't BioWare's original plan, they should cut their losses and adopt this theory so everyone will be happy, and so the Mass Effect series will go down as one of the best storylines in the history of gaming, rather than one of the biggest letdowns of all time. In closing, I would just like to add one new piece of evidence that actually puts things into perspective. Ever since the announcement of the DLC, we've all been hearing and reading about how it's going to be a new ending, but that's not what the announcement said. It said that it would clarify things and add closure in addition to filling plot holes. And according to Jessica Marazin's Twitter feed once again, it's true. Quote, "No, it's adding to the ending. The choices, etc. remain the same." Miss Marazin doesn't lie, so that's what's going down, like it or not. And honestly, I believe that this is actually supporting our theory. It's adding to the ending, because the indoctrination theory would leave the ending to be incomplete. The only caveat here is that if they choose to go with the indoctrination theory, then adding to the ending would be a massive understatement of what they have to do yet. It seriously sounds like all they're intending to do is add some new cutscenes at the end of the game after Shepard chooses. I sincerely hope it's a little more than that though, because then it would mean that the indoctrination theory is just not happening, or at least not on the scale we thought it would, and then it also means that the plot holes are still going to remain. Now, it's extremely possible that the indoctrination theory did happen, but it just doesn't last for the entire end of the game. And maybe we just missed that part where it ends, or maybe it doesn't, or maybe there is no indoctrination theory at all. Either way, one thing is certain, we're going to have clarity and closure after this DLC comes out. So isn't that all that really matters? Despite having poured hours of my own time into making this documentary, I wouldn't be that upset if the indoctrination theory turns out to be wrong. I just want to know what the hell happened at the end of the game, just like the rest of you. So don't fret if this all turns out not to be true, although the evidence is seriously heavy enough to win a Supreme Court case. And hey, it's fun to conspire, isn't it? So, loyal viewer, I appreciate you giving me so much of your time, but now you have to go make the decision on your own. Do you believe the theory or don't you? I for one do. Either way, make sure you let me know in the comments, and don't hesitate to subscribe and check us out at CleverNoob.com. As Commander Shepard would say, keep the hope alive, people.
Just hold